What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you a profile update for a deck that had just received a massive buff thanks to the most recent Forbidden Limited list, and on top of that got some brand new support cards from Doom Dimensions. Today's update is going to be True Draco. Now this time, unlike the previous version I showed you, this is going to be a pure update. This is going to be a more control heavy aspected update as well, and I think this deck could be like kind of a nice underdog deck with a bit of a nice anti-meta push. So I'm going to take you through the profile, show you what we've got, explain why we've got it, and then talk about and highlight the brand new cards as well, so you know everything you need to know about the True Draco strategy. So with that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. So starting off with the one and only monster that we're going to be maxing out at 3, and that is going to be your Dynamite Knight. Now for anyone that is new to the True Draco strategy, they all share pretty much the same ability that you contribute summon them by tributing continuous spells or traps you control. It doesn't specifically need to be Dracos. Then the lower level monsters in the form of the Dynamite Knight, the Majesty Maiden, and the Ignis Heat all have effects that when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can trigger their effects, or technically chain their effects, to gain some sort of an outcome. In the form of the Dynamite, this one allows you to either activate or add to your hand a continuous True Draco trap card. Ignis Heat does the exact same thing but for the spell cards, and the Majesty Maiden does the exact same thing, but you get to add a True Draco monster. So the idea is that Maiden's going to be able to search you out all of the monster pieces, but we do get a brand new spell card that has done that job for it, which is why you can afford to play less of it. And the Ignis Heat, even though it is still quite important, you want your first summon to be either Amano-Iwato, preview, I'll talk about that in a minute, or of course your Dynamite Knight, because your trap cards are going to be the cards that allow you to pretty much interact with your opponent during their turn. And I'll talk about those when we get to them. We're then on one of the almighty masterpiece, the True Draco Slayer King. Now the one thing with True Dracos you've got to be very, very careful of is you need to get the right balance between monsters and spells. And what I mean by that is you probably want a quarter of the deck, maybe if not less of that being monsters, which is why you don't play loads of hand traps, for the pure fact that you want to be able to get to your True Draco monsters. And when you look at Diagram is a route to get to your monsters, and the brand new spell card Draco Awakening is also another way to get to your monsters. You're better off having spells that get you to monsters than monsters that get you to monsters, which is why you're very easily comfortable to play ones and ones. Now the other monster we are playing is the brand new masterpiece, the True Draco Overlord. Now this is another one that you could arguably consider cutting down and cutting out completely and play a second masterpiece if you want to. So these are your two boss monsters for the main deck. The original masterpiece has the ability to banish a continuous spell or trap from the graveyard to target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. That's a quick effect, but it's only a once per turn. Masterpiece also has the added benefit that it becomes unaffected by the card you tribute to perform its summon. So if you tribute a spell and a monster, it's unaffected by spell and monster effects. If you tribute a trap and a spell, unaffected by those. And if you tribute a trap and a monster, it's unaffected by those. So it will have some really good matchups, Labyrinths and Sky Strikers, for example, and then it will have some not so great matchups depending on what they have. So if you're trying to consider the main meta right now, you could very easily go through Masterpiece to get you into using a spell and a monster will be quite effective against Yummies. But then on top of that as well, if you were to go against True Draco Tau, you go against monsters and trap cards, and then they don't really have a direct way to out it unless they're playing something that can break it, such as Super Poly, Forbidden Droplet, or something along those lines. Now the brand new masterpiece, the True Draco Overlord, requires 3 tributes, not 2. So I probably didn't mention this, but each of the lower ones only need 1 tribute, your masterpiece needs 2, and your new Draco Overlord needs 3. Again, you can use continuous spells and traps you control in order to do so. This one has an added benefit that while you control this tribute summon card, if your opponent activates a monster effect in the hand or the field, you get to negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that monster. If this tribute summon card is destroyed by battle or destroyed by an opponent's card effect while it is in the monster zone, you get to activate this effect, your opponent skips their next main phase. So it's a bit more of a I'd probably say a bit more of a win more con. Like, I don't think it's as necessary, but it's something that I wanted to trial out with one of this and one of this, but ultimately you could either cut this completely or you play 2 Masterpiece. The final monster that we're playing is the Amano-Iwato. So it can't be special summons, but in general, once it is on the field, monsters cannot activate their effects, except spirits. And then once per turn during the end phase, if this card was normal or flip face up, you return it to the hand. So the reason this card is so good is you go draw phase, standby, main, normal summon Amano-Iwato. From that point on, you don't need to worry about Ash Blossom, you don't need to worry about Droll, you don't need to worry about Izuna, you don't even need to worry about a Feymena. They all can't be activated because their card effects only activate in the main phase, and by the time this returns to the hand, it returns to the hand at the end of the turn during the end phase, which is really, really important. So the benefit of something like that is the only time you want your monster's effects to be triggered is when your opponent is going to activate something. So if you don't have the Amano-Iwato, you're basically saying there, please ash me, please ash, please ash, please ash, please ash, please interact in one way or another, and then I can trigger my Dynamite Knight or Ignis Heat. The Masterpiece could be used during both players' turns. So again, the idea would be that you get Masterpiece on the field. During your opponent's turn, banish one, destroy one. Great, comes back to your turn. Banish one, destroy one during the draw phase or anything like that. And then normal summon down the Amano-Iwato. The other additional normal summon card that you can consider is Inspector Border, and the reason you'd consider that is that is a 2000 monster that stays on the field, and then players can only activate monster effects up to the number of extra deck monsters they control. So it will turn off your monsters completely, and it can only be summoned while you control no monsters, but it will stop your opponent. The only reason I prefer Amano-Iwato is because I don't mind being technically immune by monster effects during my turn, and then during their turn, let them do whatever they need to do, because you'll have cards that will trigger us to start replacing them with the trap cards, the spell cards, and then Masterpiece is going to be your Mac Daddy Tower monster that's going to sit there like, well, I've got Diagram, so you have to try and attack me twice via battle. I'm going to be a base of a 3250, and then on the back of that, I've got a quick effect to banish to destroy if I want to, and if I do tribute off a trap card, I'll be able to destroy one of your monsters, or if I tribute off a spell card, I'll be able to destroy one of your spells and traps, not to mention any of the other just insanely powerful Floodgate cards you're able to play with this deck. So the other Draco spell cards, now technically these aren't true Draco spell cards, but they're massively important. So these are the ones that are technically not true Draco cards, is the free Dragonic Diagram. So glad that this is now back at free. All true Draco monsters and true King monsters you control on the field gain 300 attack and defense, and the first time each tribute summoned true Draco or true King would be destroyed by battle or card effect, it is not, by battle. I can always say card effect because it just naturally rolls off the tongue, but it's not, it's just by battle, it's not destroyed. And then once per turn you get to destroy one other card you control or in your hand, and if you do, add a true King or true Draco from the deck to the hand. Now remember, if you make your Masterpiece immune by spells, it won't get the buff. Very, very important. Because Diagram is so important, we are playing Terraforming, so it's as many legal copies as you can actually play. And then we've got free of the brand new card. This is amazing. So free Draco Awakening. It's a continuous spell card, so straight away that's your tribute fodder. But then it also constantly keeps allowing you to produce tribute fodder. So when it's activated, you get to add a monster from the deck to the hand that is either a true Draco, true King, Draco Slayer, Pendulum monster, or a Draco Overlord Pendulum. If a face-up true Draco or true King monsters you control is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, you target one of them and you place it into your spell and trap zone face-up as a continuous spell. So what you're doing is you're searching out your monsters, so you're minimizing the amount of monsters you need to play, which is now why Ignis Heat and Majesty Maiden are down to 1s each. And then it's also, not only is it a tribute fodder for itself, but it also produces tribute fodder over and over and over again. So it's an insanely powerful card for the deck and the strategy. Moving on to the actual true Draco spells that your Ignis Heat can activate and add, we'll be playing free true Draco Heritage. So this one has an effect the exact same as the other one being Disciple, which I'll talk about in a minute, is that you get the ability that during the main phase you get an additional tribute summon of a true Draco monster. So the idea is you can go normal summon Amano-Iwato, activate true Draco Heritage, activate the effect for the additional tribute summon, and off you go. You're now then accessing your true Draco monsters. The spells also share the same effect that if they are sent from the field, from the spell and trap zone to the graveyard, you get to target a spell or trap on the field and destroy it. The added or the unique benefit of Heritage is that during the main phase you get to draw cards equal to the number of true Draco and true King card types, monster, spell and trap, that have left the field to the graveyard this turn. So if you tribute off a monster, you draw 1 card. If you tribute off a spell and a monster, 2 cards. If you tribute off a spell, monster and trap, draw 3 cards. And if you're in the mirror match and your opponent does that themselves, you just draw for the cards because it's true Draco cards that leave the field, not just your side of the field. Then we're on free Disciple, and the reason I've maxed these out is because you kind of want to be able to access these more over the Ignis Heat, because these are going to give you your additional tribute summons. That's what you're wanting to do when you're going first, because you want to ideally end up with like a Dynamite Knight plus a Masterpiece, or an Ignis Heat plus a Dynamite Knight. Like, you want to add as many as you possibly can. The unique effect of Disciples lets you target 3 true Draco and or true King cards in the grave, put them back into the deck and draw 1 card. For the track cards, we're going to be playing free Apocalypse. This, in my opinion, is the best one. So both the track cards have the exact same effect, that if it is sent from the spell and trap zones to the graveyard, target a monster on the field and destroy it. This one has a unique effect that allows you to target one other true Draco or true King you control, destroy it, and if you do, the attack and defense of all face-on monsters your opponent controls become half. Now, the biggest thing about that is if your opponent declares an attack on one of your monsters, during damage calculation, if you activate this and tribute off that monster, the monster that made that attack, if you tribute off the card that was declared the attack upon, they can't redeclare, and it basically just means that their attack fizzles, which is an insanely powerful loophole. The other kind of shared effect that both this and True King's Return has is the fact that during your opponent's main phase, you can trigger the trap effect to then tribute summon during your opponent's turn, which is why the next card I'll show you in a minute is going to be even more important. But the idea is you get to tribute during your opponent's turn, which means you can tribute off your spell card to destroy a spell trap, or you tribute off a trap card and then destroy one of your opponent's monsters. True King's Return has the ability to target True Draco or True King in the grave and special summon it in defense. The rest of the turn you can't special summon, which is absolutely fine because you're not going to be doing that in this deck, unless you are playing a card like the brand new Draco Phoenix, which honestly, I didn't think it was worthwhile special summoning it to your field or your opponent's. Yes, if you summon it to your opponent's field, it will mill their top 4 cards or banish their top 4 cards, but honestly, I didn't think it was that worth it, and I'd much rather play Pot of Duality in this deck than I would play that. So the next card that combos off amazingly well with both these trap cards is Monarch Stormforth. Now, I absolutely love Monarch Stormforth because it always puts my opponent on edge when you activate it, because you know at any moment you can tribute off one of their monsters in place of one of your own to get you access to your Dynamite Knight, your Masterpiece, anything you need to. Another card that a lot of people are considering is the spell card Soul Exchange. Now, the biggest difference between these two, or technically there are some differences, but the spell Soul Exchange is a tribute summon that you're performing, whereas Monarch Stormforth has been ruled that it affects the monster. So if it's got a Liga Dancer, you can't Monarch Stormforth it, which is a bit of a weird one, but it's kind of the way that it works. Whereas the spell card Soul Exchange doesn't affect the monster, it just gives you a tribute summon, so it's kind of like Kaiju in your opponent's monster. So it's nice to out that. So if you are facing a heavy Lunalight lineup, have this card, but I'd honestly have this in the side deck, and it's a card I would side in over that. But what I like about the Monarch Stormforth is because it's a quick play, you can activate it during your opponent's turn and chain it off with the tribute effect of one of your trap cards, meaning that you just go, cool, activate the trap card, chain Monarch Stormforth, tribute off your opponent's monster, summon down your monster for pretty much nothing, which is really, really cool. The other downside of this card is if when it leaves the field to the graveyard, so while you activate it and then it goes to the grave, your opponent can apply the previous effect, so they can just tribute your monster in response if they're on like pure Canine or something. The other generic spells we are playing is free Pot of Duality. Sometimes this can get a little bit too much, but back in the day you'd be able to play 3 of this and 3 Card of the Demise. Unfortunately, you can only play 1 Card of the Demise now. You could take out a Pot of Duality for like another selected Floodgate of your choice should you want to. I feel we've pretty much got the bases covered on this one, but I'll talk them through in a minute. Card of Demise, pretty standard. You're wanting to keep all your monsters in the deck so that you activate Card of Demise, draw loads of your Floodgates, play the Floodgates. Now, back in the day, the deck was able to play stuff like free Summon Limits. They were able to play stuff like free Rivalries, free Gozens, technically sometimes, free Skill Drain. Like, they would literally just play as many of the Floodgates as possible in this deck, which is actually insane because you would be able to get out of those Floodgates when you wanted to. Now that is not the case. You still need to play monsters. I don't think the monster ratios really changed from back in the day because you would play like 3 Dynamite Knight, maybe 3 Ignis Heat, and then like 2 of the Majesty Maiden, and then 1 Masterpiece. And we're pretty much doing that anyway because we've reduced the monster count of the others because we got the brand new Draco's Awakening. Speaking of the Floodgate trap cards, this is where it gets degenerate for the deck, but it's also one of its biggest attributes, is the fact you can play free Monarchs Erupt. Now, this is a version without an extra deck, if you hadn't guessed it already. If you wanted to play an extra deck with this deck, you could play stuff like Pot of Extravagance. It could open up the door to play stuff like Super Poly if you wanted to. It could also open up the door to have a bit more versatility for the modernized game right now by being able to access stuff like Typhon as well. But because we're not doing that, you might as well utilize one of the best Floodgates that is still at free, and that's Monarchs Erupt. For those of you that don't know how Monarchs Erupt work, you get to activate this card only if you have no cards in your extra deck, and you control a tribute summon monster. You negate the effects of all face-up monsters on the field, while those monsters are face-up, except tribute summoned monsters, which all of your monsters will be, so it's basically like a one-sided skill drain. During your end phase, if you control no tribute summon monsters, you send this card to the graveyard. Now, you can play more of a bigger Monarchs engine if you wanted to. Like, I've seen builds that play the Pantheism. You can also play, I don't think it's Tenacity, but you also play like other cards that help you out. Honestly, I was just happy to play these because then it just opens up the door for you to play the original Skill Drain. There can only be one, and Rivalry of the Warlords. Again, remember, if you put yourself under something like there can only be one, you're going to want to make sure you do it with one of your stronger monsters, and then you get out of it whenever you want to. So you can consider other cards, but mainly what you're trying to focus on with your spells and trap lineup is having continuous spells and traps. You've pretty much covered most of the good continuous spell cards in the form of stuff like your Draco's Awakening and everything else in between, and then you're primarily focusing on the out-and-out counter traps that just completely, continuous trap cards that just wreck your opponent. Now, if your opponent plays stronger monsters than you and Skill Drain is unaffected against them, you've got 4 slots you would side out. So when you're looking at your side deck, you'd be looking at stuff like maybe a Fulos if you feel that you need to get the draw patterns and your opponent is a very heavy extra deck combo orientated player. If you feel you're going to be running into loads of towers, you'd go for stuff like Spell Card Soul Exchange. Triple Tactics Thrust is not that ideal because you're setting a normal spell card, which isn't really getting you to like the out goal you'd probably want to be pushing for. But you'd start looking at like breaker cards that don't rely on the extra deck. So you've got Book of Eclipse you could consider if you wanted to. You've got Dark Rule No More as well you could consider if you wanted to. But what you've got to remember is when you're putting in cards like that, you need to make sure you're pretty much taking out the same types. And what I mean by that one is, if I'm putting in 3 normal spell cards, I might want to look at reducing Pot of Duality. If I'm putting in specifically continuous track cards that are going to be effective in the matchup, you kind of want to replace them with continuous track cards so you don't mess up the ratios of what you already have. Because like I mentioned, you want to get the balance of the monsters and the spells and the traps correct. Otherwise, if you end up with a whole hand of spells that don't get you to a monster, you're not doing anything. And if you open up a whole hand of trap cards, you're going to hope that you can floodgate your opponent down until you do get a monster that you're going to need. One other very important thing to remember about this deck as well. So with Masterpiece, it does get its immunities when you're attributing the particular type of cards. Now, it only always comes down to what comes first. Now, what I mean by that is, and this is a very important thing to know, is if Skill Drain is already face up on the field and I decide to tribute off, for example, Apocalypse and a monster to get my Masterpiece down, even though Masterpiece is now technically immune by trap cards, it's whatever came first. So even though it's immune, because Skill Drain was already on the field first, he is negated by Skill Drain. Whereas if it was the other way round and I got Masterpiece down by treating off the Apocalypse, summon resolved correctly and then activated Skill Drain, Masterpiece would be unaffected by Skill Drain. So it's these little loopholes that you do need to remember, because the last thing you want to do, and I have fallen victim to it myself, is have Skill Drain on the field, summon down Masterpiece and be like, damn, I was supposed to tribute off the Skill Drain, because you need to get rid of the Skill Drain so this has its effects and go from there. Now, this was back in the day when Skill Drain was at 3, so it was a little bit easier to go, cool, get rid of that and bring it back. So yeah, this is one of the control versions of the deck. It's going to be very interesting to see how it sits in today's meta. It's still a very, very powerful deck. I love the artwork of it. I love the lore behind all of it as well. And even back in the day, people did used to play Zodiacs, which was really cool. That's one of the options if you do decide to use an extra deck, because you play True Draco Zodiac, and the idea is that Barrage is a face-up continuous spell card. So you would activate Barrage, you'd destroy another card, you'd get yourself direct access to a Trident, and then you had a quick effect pop on the field, but then you just go cool, and then tribute off the Barrage, get you Dynamite Knight, or tribute off the Barrage, get you a Masterpiece. So it all relied on you opening up the opening up that ability, or opening up Barrage to get you where you needed to go, and then obviously it meant you would basically take out free Duality, and that's straight away your free Barrage, and then you kind of work it that way. Anyway, I hope this is giving you as much information as possible about the True Draco strategy. I definitely feel that this is going to be one of those decks that will catch a lot of people off guard. I feel that if you were a fan of the True Dracos back in the day, you're definitely going to be looking to put this back together now that Masterpiece is back at 3, Diagram's back at 3, and then the brand new cards are pretty decent for the deck. So it's going to be one of them ones that if you aren't prepared for it, it will really catch you out. But I feel it's just naturally been power crept over time. But it'll be very interesting to see if this features at YCS Lille this weekend, and if it does anything, to be totally honest. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Do like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.